Good thing I didn't say anything overwhelmingly important. Michael took a listing, by the way. Congratulations, just so it's on YouTube forever.
Congratulations, Michael.
Thank you.
And FMLS is doing away with their area searches apparently, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. But if you have any searching sites or searching client portals or whatever that is dependent on an FMLS area rather than something else, you need to relook at that. Okay, so let's see. We are also doing a Life by Design workshop that's going to be from 1:30 to 3:30 on Friday. I'm going to be teaching that, but it's for everybody, so it'll be on kwroswelltraining.com. Okay.
But I'm just going to say, last time Bill did this, he had people were coming up to me saying what a great class it was. So I encourage you all to take it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm just double checking. Oh, and Tuesday night, Candace, you want to tell us about Tuesday night real fast?
Tuesday night, we have a new vendor that I'd like for everybody to meet. His name is Jonathan Stevens. He's with Country Financial. He's got some incredible programs for realtors. One of which is he'll sponsor an open house with up to a certain amount. He's going to sponsor our get together at Kona Grill Tuesday from 4:30 to 6, one drink and appetizers. So we hope you can come out. It'll just be for fun and just to relax a little bit with each other. We've all been working hard.
All right, perfect. There will be no talks of 411s or recording or any of that kind of stuff. So you don't have to worry. I'm going to have somebody next to me the whole time to make sure I don't say anything like that. Okay. I'm going to have a guard. Okay. So I want to spend some time today going through pricing. That's the goal of today. And the way that I want to do it, I don't know if this is intelligent or not intelligent, but I will tell you it is not from a lack of preparation. What I wanted to do is do a completely cold workshop with you today, meaning I have not prepared. Okay. And I don't want to basically come to the table with a bunch of information that you don't see or understand. So I'm going to really work through this particular property. And the unfortunate thing at the moment is I don't know much about the property. So Greta, I'm going to ask you to be, to share some stuff about the property here in just a moment.
Yes.
And the goal is we want to, this is a great example of getting an address from wherever you get it from and being asked to come up with a recommended listing price. Okay. Now, just a quick caveat at the beginning, you got to understand that in general, there is a little bit of a difference of opinion of value for every property, really for anything that's exchanged, right? So if somebody were to sell this home for 600, let's say, then the seller believes that it's worth less than 600 because they'd rather have the money than the house. And the buyer believes that it's worth more than 600 because they'd rather have the house than the money. Y'all follow that? That's why when you ask for highest and best, you tend to get different numbers, right? Because that theoretically is the highest number that those people would be willing to pay for that house at that moment. Okay, so there is no exact value, right? It's strictly opinions. Same thing with appraisers. All that is it's the appraiser's opinion of value at that moment. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is go to Google Maps. Okay. And I'm going to type in the address here. It's 651 ARDLOW Drive, and that is Milton. There we go. So the first thing I want to do is I just kind of want to know where it is. Okay, I just want to kind of get an understanding of where it is and if there's anything unique about this property that I need to understand. For example, if I see that there is a stream that goes through the backyard, then that puts me on the lookout for, is this in a floodplain, or is a portion of it maybe perhaps in a floodplain? Is it like the first house in the neighborhood? Does it back to a main street? Is it in an area that I know is very popular, or in an area that I know is the opposite of that, perhaps? right? So I'm just trying to get a general idea of where this property is, okay? Oops. Okay, so what we can see here is it's very close, pretty much walking distance to Crabapple and all the stuff that's going on in Crabapple. Y'all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now as you're doing this, this is also a good way of, you know, I used to be really kind of intentional about knowing where the roads intersected and what road led to another road. And like, I think that's really important, right? So when you're driving this area, you can see if I take Mid Broadwell this way, where do I go? If I take Broadwell down south, where does that take me, right? Are there any other neighborhoods in the area that have a similar product, right? So now I'm just simply doing some basic understanding, okay? And look, I get a little picture of what may be the house, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is, people might say that I'm crazy for this, but I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm going to go to a couple of the automated value sites, not because I think they're right, it's just because I want to see what they're saying, okay? So ARC low, this says it's an Alpharetta, and this says it's 512. Okay, so I'm just going to write this stuff down. 512 on Redfin. Okay, then I'm going to go to Zillow. Again, I'm just doing some basic research. Arc low drive. Milton. Properly space this out and see if that changes anything. Not really. You guys see how annoying Zillow is? Is this enough
Very much
evidence?
so.
Big time.
All right. Will somebody look that up if they're in front of a computer and see if you can get the estimated value for Zillow, please? Look at this. This doesn't tell me anything. Why are you guys messing with Zillow? Okay, then I'm going to go to the tax records. Find the tax records through MLS.
What's the address, Bill? 5561.
Oh, you know
Ardlow?
what? That's probably the problem, is it's not 561. It's 651. Ah, no wonder. User error. Okay, so it's 572 on Zillow.
So when people search like this, you know, like if you see it, like if a potential buyer searches, you know, they're going to look at Zillow as well. Do you find that Zillow numbers like come up, like obviously it came up higher than Redfin? Is that like what you would see more often than not?
Yes, and the reason why is because there has to be remember, they're buying these homes. They're willing to buy all these homes, right? And so they want to have I'm not suggesting they're doing anything unethical, although I'm potentially saying that, is there needs to be some alignment between what Zillow says it's worth and what Zillow is willing to offer you, right? So if, for example, Zillow said it's worth 550 and then they gave you an offer for 500, they'd be like, I'm not taking this offer. You see what I'm saying? So there's probably a much more of a connection between what Zillow says it's worth and what Zillow is willing to pay for it. Y'all hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Y'all hear what I'm not saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so now we have what we need from Zillow. So let's go to a tax records. Okay, so 651 Arc Low Drive. Search. And now this is going to tell us a couple extra things we need to know. Number one, we want to make sure this property looks like it's owned by Wendy Eden. So we want to double check to make sure that that's the person that we're speaking with, right? And if it's not the person we're speaking with, we might want to ask a question, you know, to try to figure out, is there somebody else that needs to be involved in this, right? And you got to be sensitive about this stuff because it could be anything. The owner could have passed away, and this is the heir. This could be a divorce situation. It could get a little tricky. So you got to be really delicate around how you ask those questions, okay? So it says it's in a neighborhood called Crabapple Station. So I just want to, take note of that because I'll probably use that for the FMLS search.
And
Okay.
Bill, I'd just like to say that tax records are often incorrect.
Yes,
I went
they
on a
are.
listing appointment recently where it said it was 4 bedrooms and 2.5 baths, and it was 5 bedrooms. Sorry, 7 bedrooms and 5 baths. So you want to verify with your seller before you make assumptions about those kinds of things.
That's exactly right. They also have a real AVM valuator, and they say it's 478. Okay. Now I want to know what this house closed for and when. So what we know is that it was bought by, interestingly enough, it looks like this home may have been previously purchased by a woman I actually know. And she sold it to these people. However, what we know is that this home closed
It was a new build, Bill.
yeah, but it says sale price. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was listed for 422.3 and sold for 422.9. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the listing agent. Forget about that. Okay, so we know that 422,920 was what it was worth on 7/27/2015. What I mean by what it was worth is that's what a willing buyer and willing seller were willing to exchange it for 6 years ago. In your estimation, has the market gone up or down in the last 6 years? Okay, so that's pretty much a bare minimum, I would suggest. Okay, we're not making a whole lot of progress here, but every little bit counts. Okay, now let's go back to the to FMLS. Okay, so is Crabapple Station the name of that neighborhood, Greta?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go here first. Crabapple Station, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on everything right this second, and I'm going to go back a little bit more. I'm going to go back, let's say. I'm going to do 750 days, which is a little bit more than 2 years. Again, I'm just taking I'm going wide first, and then I'll narrow it in. Okay. So it looks like there's a pretty wide range of activity here. The first thing you should see is that there's no active or pending listings. Okay. So that makes it a little bit more challenging, of course, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. So the high end of active listings is, of sold listings is 690. The low end is 330. No wonder we were having a hard time with this.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay, so now you see there's some in there that are single family houses. See how that's detached and not attached? Okay, so Greta, is the subject house detached or attached?
It's attached.
Okay, I had a feeling you're going to say that. So now we go back to criteria and we get rid of detached. So we're learning more about the community. Okay, now we're down to 7. Okay, so now we see the prices are a little lower. Okay, 550 on the high end and 475 on the low end. And all of them essentially look to be 4 3.5s. I would suspect that's probably a mistake. Okay, so let's just get a decent idea of what this product might look like. Okay, so 3 beds, 3 baths in a basement generally, with a bed and a bath and a half bath on the main. Okay, is there anything that is particularly unusual about this property having gone inside of it?
The only thing is it's an end unit, which I know kind of adds a little value. It shows beautifully. It's decorated. She put some upgrades in it. It's been freshly painted. No one seems to move in that neighborhood is the hard part.
Okay.
Although Itasca is in that neighborhood.
What was the last thing you said?
Itasca Walk is also a street in the neighborhood.
Right. Yeah.
Very
I'm
small, yeah.
only looking at properties within Crabapple Station.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Bill, I don't know if it's worth looking at, but I noticed every single one of these sold under list price. The ones that you were just going through.
Yep, that's fair to say. Well, so let's look at something slightly different, which is
Days on market.
Days on market. Yeah.
the only issue with that is
It was a new build.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to throw off a lot of the numbers because
Okay, I was gonna say, like,
some of these
why?
properties were listed. You know, generally in a new community, what they'll do is they'll list one of each of the plans, right?
Mhm.
And then when they sell the another model of that particular plan, they only put it in FMLS after the deal closes, and therefore it's going to look like there were low days on the market, if any, right? You see this one sold at 0 days on the market. You see what I'm saying? So days
Yeah, I
on
was
the
gonna
market is
ask
gonna-
about that because it was really confusing.
So
But
days
that
on the
makes
market
sense.
is going to confuse it, and it's also going to be confused by essentially the, let's back up for another second. There's generally kind of two approaches that new home construction communities use. They either they announce a model. Hey, this is the Madison. Okay, the Madison has this, and this, and this, and this, and this. That is standard features. You go under contract with the property, and Candace, you can add to this if you'd like, of course, because you have more experience than me. And then they say, okay, now you're going to go to the design center and you're going to upgrade anything you want to upgrade. So if you want a nicer lighting package, if you want a higher level granite, if you want a thicker carpet pad, if you want, let's say granite is standard in the kitchen, but it's not standard in the bathrooms. But if you want it standard in the bathrooms, or not standard, but if you want it in the bathrooms, you're going to have to pay a little bit more. So there's usually a significant difference between the what the Madison sells normally, what's standard, and then what the final sales price is. Okay, one thing that the communities like to do is they don't want to go down on the price of the Madison, for example. So if they've got the Madison for sale for 500,000, if they negotiate off of that, and let's say they sell it for 480, they're never going to sell another one for 500. So they're going to get, if they're going to negotiate, it's generally going to be on things that are less obvious. Things like closing costs, refrigerators, another year of a warranty, some design store credit, design center credit, that kind of stuff. So they can maintain the integrity of what a Madison sells for, so you won't have any appraisal problems in the future. Candace, did I summarize that okay?
Yes, but there are some builders in some situations, and what I'd learned to do on the other side of it is to go in and talk to the listing agent or the on-site agent and say, is your builder accepting offers below ask price? And sometimes they will say yes. And when they say yes, then you say, depending on the price point, would 10,000 be a reasonable thing? And if they shake their head, then you say, would 7? And if they shake their head, you say, would 5? And so that's how you get to know what you can offer.
Right. And I don't
But
know,
it's
if I
rare.
might be
It's
speaking
rare.
completely out of turn here, but is it true that are on-site agents expected to have a certain number of pendings per month? Meaning, like, if you're towards the end of the month?
Mhm.
Yeah, and that depends on the build. That depends on the builder as well. If it's a builder like David Weekley or Ashton Woods, one of those, absolutely, you've got quotas.
Meaning, if you go on today and you want to try to get something under contract, they may be more, they may be a little bit more likely to work with you.
Exactly.
Okay. Very
Yeah,
cool.
but I know someone, she's working for a builder right now, and they've now, because it's so crazy, they only pay them for so many a month. And then after that, they don't get paid anymore per month. So it could be the
That's
other
crazy.
opposite.
That is interesting. We also have builders out there that are paying lower than 3% commission, and some that are paying way lower than 3% commission. And some aren't even paying realtors. They're basically be like, just drop your client off, we'll take care of them. I bet you will. Right. I cannot wait to see what they have to do to get us realtors back when the market slows down a little bit. Right. That's going to be really entertaining when they come back crying to the real estate community after they screwed us over for so long.
In a different market where that happens, they'll be sponsoring happy hours. They'll be
Oh yeah,
sponsoring lunch
we're gonna
and
be eating
learns,
like
free
want it.
CE.
Woo. It's gonna be
Just-
like steak and lobster, lobster to get us back. All right. So one other thing that you guys could have noticed is that there's really only been one sale in 2021. Y'all see that? Okay, so prior to that, the most recent sale was
See that? Oh,
August of 2020. Okay, so let's go to this highest sale. This is going to be probably our closest indication of what this market will bear. Okay, so 3 beds and 2 baths upstairs, half a bath on the main, and a 1-1 down below. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of pictures here. It was originally listed for $575, ultimately sold for $550. So now I'm starting to think that $550 is going to be pretty close to what I'm looking for. Okay, so let's find some actives.
Even
Okay.
though that was a year ago?
that's what I was gonna say.
A year ago?
No, this was like 2 months ago.
It wasn't in 20, it was 2020.
No, no,
Oh,
no.
it was May
I thought it
May
was May of
14th of 2021.
2021.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay, I
Sorry.
would probably call Jenny Doyle, by the way. I know Jenny, and I'd say, hey, Jenny, tell me more about your experience. You see what I'm saying? That's how important it is to have relationships with real estate agents. I've done a transaction with Jenny. She's super nice. She'd probably tell me anything I wanted to know. Make sense?
yeah.
And by the way, if you don't know her, call her and introduce yourself, right? Hey, I've got a listing coming up. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience in that community? Okay, now I think I know the answer to this, but there are no available properties in that neighborhood by the builder, right? The builder's gone.
It's been gone.
Okay.
That was a resale.
Okay, so that's another important point. So if there's still people on site trying to sell the builder's model, and you have, let's say, maybe somebody that bought a year or two prior to that and is ready to sell, then you better go into that new home construction office and figure out what they're offering these people, right? Are they selling your client's model for a certain price? Are they offering certain financing incentives? Are they offering certain design studio incentives, right? If a buyer were to come out from the marketplace and see your home on the market, and yet when they're driving to your home on the market, they see the sales center with balloons and all this kind of stuff, you think they're going to stop in? Of course they are. So you better figure out what they're offering to justify your price, because essentially what you have to do is undercut them.
Bill, so do you go in as a realtor or do you go in as a prospect?
I go in as a realtor. I mean, there's no need to be deceptive,
Okay.
right?
How many days on the market was this one?
Well, this one says 0 because it was, probably the data was put listing for short period prior to full remodel and higher price. So,
Okay.
this one says 0 days. My hunch is that obviously that's not accurate, but I would probably call the list or the buyer's agent and try to confirm that. But what we know, and I'd then go on to its ACA and see, hey, does this home look like the one I'm trying to price, right? So I'm thinking that this property is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of that 550. So let's take a different approach here. Okay, what I want to figure out is, are there any active properties? Oops, hang on. Let me do one more thing. So I want to jot down the schools. Okay, so the schools are Crabapple Crossing, Northwestern, and Milton. Okay, so now I'm going to go up to criteria again. And what I'm looking for is properties that are active on the market that are somewhat comparable to what we saw. Make sense? So I want active properties. I'm going to get rid of Crabapple Station because we already know there's no actives there. And I'm going to go to Milton High School just to start.
While you type that, I have a question.
Sure.
So that particular unit is on the end, but it's right behind some commercial property. So
Okay.
it would overlook commercial versus the unit in question overlooks like a green area and is embedded in the neighborhood. And the other one that sold also, I'm assuming, but would want to find out, was a rental property and may have had some
deferred maintenance, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, may have needed some love. So I don't know if those two things are pertinent or not.
It's just good information to have. So for example, the one that backs up to commercial, if that one was available and your property were available, most people would probably be willing to pay more for your property. And they'll be aware of that fact in the future. That doesn't necessarily, like, it becomes less valuable because you can't choose from those two. One's available and one's now not available, right? Okay, so what I want to do is look for active properties. I'm just going to say, let's say 450 on the low end and 650 on the high end. Okay, so I've got a pretty wide range, 100 grand higher, 100 grand lower than my best guess so far. Okay, and now I'm trying to see, well, what is available? Okay, and how long has it been available? So here looks to be a new construction property. It only has 3-2 upstairs, half just like the other one, but it does not have a basement. Okay, and that's available for 646. So what I need to understand is that there is a community called Atley, A-T-L-E-Y, that has properties within the same school district, roughly similar. Okay, so as a real estate agent, I would want to go into that community and learn all about it. Hey, I'm Bill, I'm with Keller Williams. I'm not familiar with your community. Could you give me an overview? Right? And they'll say, yeah, we got this many lots, this many have sold, these are the incentives, come tour one of the models, this is what we do special, this is the financing and incentive, these kind of things, right? So you learn what your future buyer will be hearing from the competition, right? So I would absolutely suggest going into this community. Yes.
So I've been, am I okay? So I've
go
been,
ahead.
No, go ahead. I had a question, but go ahead.
I've been in that community. It's a new community, and those are not available, if you notice, until spring of 2022.
That was my question.
This is a deferred purchase at this point. It's not available.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming that might make a difference. It's also not as insulated and not as, it's different. It's similar, but it's in a very different location. You can walk to downtown Alpharetta, but you also put up with, you know,
Everything that's in downtown Alpharetta.
well, it's like at the corner of Old Milton and I can't remember the other. It's on a main trafficy area, put it that way.
Haynes Bridge.
Haynes Bridge, thank you. It's kind of on that, and you can hear and see everything. Like,
It probably takes you a year to pull out of this complex too. Y'all ever sat in
well, they're going to
traffic
have
on Haynes Bridge?
a traffic light there, which is nice, but
Okay.
it's still like you look at a gas station when you pull out.
Yep, the gas station is right here, isn't it?
I can't see your screen. Sorry.
Oh, that's a sub screen. Yeah, sorry, you guys won't be able to see the mapping. Okay, so let me tell you something. What we're learning here is Greta has not skipped any steps, right? This is thorough research. Great job. Okay, so that's a very good point, because now somebody can't actually, they could buy it, but more often than not, they want to move now, right? So Atley is something to be aware of, but not necessarily something that is a choice for them, right? So here's another community, Towns at Old Mill, 531. What do you know about that place?
This one, I'm not as familiar with where it is, but from looking, I'm thinking if it's, I'd have to see the description of the group that built it. There's like this
Beazer.
modern urban look that's very close also. And the problem with it is they're building these with like zero parking. Like you cannot have company. There's no driveway. If your company comes, they've got to park way over in a parking lot. And if it's raining, you'd have to drive over to get them and bring them to your home.
Wow.
I'm thinking, or I mean, if it's where I think it is, this one, I don't know. Oh, that's Roswell. It's still in,
So this is right around the corner from us. This is at the corner of House Road and House Way.
we can't see that screen, unfortunately.
Oh, so if you come out of here and you take a right out of the side parking lot and take a left on House, when you hit the other house way, it's right at the corner there. You could walk to it from our office.
Yeah, I think, I'm pretty sure. And it's still Milton and Crabapple?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
No, I'm sorry. It's Milton, but Elkins Point.
okay.
Okay. So worthwhile noting, maybe look at some statistics for Elkins Point versus Northwestern, and that could be a factor too. This one's 531. Okay, and of course you can look at the listing history to see how the market has responded to this. It came onto the market 7/31, and interestingly enough, 3 weeks later they upped the price by $1,000, probably just to get it back on some of the search hot lists or whatever. Okay, so 5/31 still available. So I'd walk into this one and say to myself, if a buyer was to look at this property and my subject property back to back, what would their feelings be? Okay, from what you've described, it sounds like your subject property might be more impressive than this one. Okay, and that then is proof that it should be higher than 530. Okay, all right, next property, the Maxwell. Okay, this is a different product kind of altogether. 2-1 upstairs, 1-1 on the main, no basement, for a 3-2, a 3-2.5 total. So I'd say this is probably less, this is a little bit different, right? I think this is probably a little less valuable.
Is this the condo or
Yeah.
the townhome? Because that's mixed. That neighborhood has both.
So this one is a townhome.
No, it's a condo.
This particular one?
It says right in there, subtype condominium.
Yeah, but down here it says Hathaway stacked townhome.
Why are they subtyping it as a condo then?
And even below it, it says condo will feature upscale. That I don't
Is that,
know.
like, I've seen that on a couple listing. Does that just depend upon the type of ownership?
That's exactly what
sometimes?
it's referring to.
Okay.
So just so everyone remembers, on a condo, the ownership, it's called condominium ownership, right? The way that the definition of that essentially is you own the walls and inside. The structure itself, the roof, the land that it sits on, you don't own that. That's owned by the HOA, who owns the buildings and all of that, or the community at large. So technically you own a portion of it, but you only own inside the unit. Okay, a townhome, you own the ground that it sits on, the driveway, the roof, the structure, all of that. Now, in most townhome communities, the association will take care of the maintenance of that, right, and cut the bushes and that kind of stuff, but it's owned by the actual owner.
And just a note on that, if you're working with a buyer and you go into a townhome, the windows typically belong to the owner. And so if the windows are fogged, that's a repair, that's a request for repair. Can be a considerable one.
Right. And another thing is they're starting to, I've seen some that are almost, they're blended in some way. It's much harder to figure it out. So one question that's really important to always ask is who's the roof covered by?
Yeah.
So for example, I used to live in a townhome where you would expect the roof to be taken care of by the HOA. The roof was, or I'm sorry, you would expect the roof to be taken care of by the owner. Our roof was actually taken care of by the HOA. Okay, so
But that's only if it's a condo or townhouse situation that you ask that, or?
No, that's two options within what you would call a townhome. So it's not quite as easy as you think to look at. You can't look at something and say that looks like a townhome, it must be a townhome. You got to go a little further and ask questions. So one other way that you could figure it out or have a little bit better of an idea is, have you guys noticed that condominiums have higher HOA fees than townhomes? That's because you're paying for the master insurance policy, which covers all of the structures, right? In a townhome, you have to pay your own private insurance for that coverage, and therefore the HOA doesn't have to take care of it. You're going to pay for insurance no matter what, but townhome, you're paying a little bit more on your homeowner's policy, and HOA, you're paying a little bit more on the HOA's fee. Make sense? Okay, so this is probably not that great of a comp. Yes, Greta.
That I do know this one. This is the urban one that has, I know for sure that has no parking, and it's a blend of townhomes and condos. And those condos, a lot of them are like, even if it's 2 levels, they could have one above it or one below it.
Yeah.
Because they do the 3-level townhome and then they stack condos beside it and it's all mixed in.
Yep.
And I have had friends buy in there over in the mid 600s for a townhome.
Okay.
And it's right across from the Atlee. they're exactly owned by the same group, but they're across the street from each other.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. So, and you can look at like this community has cabanas and fire pits and bocce balls and, you know, all this kind of stuff. HOA maintains the landscape in the heart of Alpharetta, walk to everything, yada, yada. Okay. These are a good bit smaller though, and they're priced a little bit lower, as you would imagine. So I think we've probably exhausted what we can find here. There is one other community just to be aware of, called the Artisan. These look to be a little bit more smaller and, as you would expect, less expensive. So meaning the price should be significantly higher than 460. Okay, so now we've seen a little bit of more detail. Again, not overwhelmingly helpful though. Okay, so let's get rid of Milton for a second, and let's just type in the street address and do a search that way, because really what we're trying to, I want to see an active home. Just show me an active home, right? Where do I have to go to find an active home? Oh wait, I'm putting it in the wrong place. Uh, 651 Arc Low. And let's say 2 miles. 2 miles from that location, are there, I'll get rid of price just to double check. So I'm
Would
looking,
you search by just townhome or townhome and condo?
I'll do just townhome.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 7 spots. So here's another one. This is a 728, my goodness.
I'm telling you, it's nuts.
I mean, this looks to be a little bit more, this is a higher end property than the one you're looking at, right?
I don't know. It's pretty, the one I'm looking at is pretty posh. Like those look like engineered floors and hers are true hardwoods.
Okay, do you know what the footage is of the subject property?
It says in the tax records 2,600, but I've seen elsewhere 2,100, and being in the property, I would say somewhere in between. It doesn't feel, it's hard to tell, you know, because of the levels.
Okay. Just because I think that the last sale in there was 550.
Yeah.
I think we'd have a really hard time justifying something in the 7s.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that's the same community, 713, same community, 712, 710, 709, 709, and then 340 something. So now I see why you're having a little hard time with this, because that's not helpful at all. Okay. So let's do it this way. Actually, what we didn't look at was these. Let's just double check to see if we can learn anything from this. And I'm doing this all live for you so you can actually see what somebody goes through as they're experiencing this. Okay, so let's do some price as well. Let's say 450 to 650. Okay, so there's 42 properties in Milton that have that price. So let's look at the list here. So you can see these 4 active properties. We've already determined that it was more impressive than this one. That's the 531. Okay. Now here's a good one. So this is active under contract, not far away, right? Different elementary school, but same middle and same high. Here's one that was listed for 550. Okay, and it was, and let's see. Looks like it was on the market, came off the market within a week, came back on the market, and went under contract within 3 days. So this, we would assume, is probably right around 550, right? So let's look at this home, also an end unit. And we start to say to ourselves, what do we think? I'd go into this property if I could. I'd call the listing agent and say, hey, doing a little research for a new listing coming up. Do you mind if I poke my head in? Right? So pretty small backyard. But you do have some nice, I mean, that's some nice touch here with light fixtures and stuff. You can see where it's located. See, this kind of stuff is pretty cool to put in a listing, just as a side note, right? The more things you talk about with in terms of amenities, the more impressive the home appears to be. Okay. If you did not take these pictures, do not put them in. That person's probably getting sued. Okay. Do not put a picture like this in here if you did not take it. It is not yours. Do you know that somebody can Google a picture and see wherever that picture is on any website anywhere, and they work closely with lawyers and they'll just send them all warnings or lawsuits? If you do not take these pictures, do not put them in there. Okay. So here's one, 2,050 square feet, and it doesn't have that lower bedroom. So this leads me to believe that 550 might be not enough. Right? Y'all see that? So now I'm thinking I could probably go a bit higher than 550. Candace, if you have done all the stuff that I have done so far, where would you go next? What would you do to kind of determine perhaps how high above 550 can you push it?
I would select some of the properties that you've researched, and I would do a quick CMA just to see what the median is. That's pretty much what I would do. There's typically not enough time. I mean, it's with a listing, if you've got a little notice like you've been talking about, it's good to go check out your competition. I've actually even taken sellers on competition tours so they can get a better idea. We can do a lot with photographs now, but just being in there is, I just read Greta's, being in the home and actually seeing what's happening will help you influence the price. I don't like
to notice there weren't any interior photos on that listing.
Yeah, so it's good to go see. But I would probably select some of the properties and then do a quick CMA. And Bill, you can show how to do that.
Yeah,
I have a question.
The only issue with that, just so, I mean, it's not an issue, but it's just something that you got to be careful with, is the median price is determined by the high end that you select and where you agree to stop, and the low end that you select and where you agree to start, right? So I can make the stats look however I want.
Well, that's true. That's true. But I'm trying to get, that's why you're selective about the properties that you pick. And
Right.
I don't go with the median price. I just want to see what the range is. And I typically don't price at the high end in this market. I price a little bit below the high end in order to encourage offers over ask price. I've heard Dustin say he goes 5% lower than what the high end is. And the other thing, well, that's a little bit farther down the way, but I would never give a seller a price. I always give a range.
Okay, so here's one. Oh, there is one other thing that we could do to get a little bit more detailed, right? You see all these first of all, there's no sales in the last 6 months. All these are pendings.
Wow.
Wait, let me just double check something. Well, no wonder I don't have it closed. So that would probably help. I think we know that it's not above 600 more or less. So I'd probably go a little higher, and I might even tighten this up a little bit too and just say 500 to 600. Okay, so let's start with the pendings. I could go, let's say I was like, oh, I wonder if I could go to 570. Okay, well, here's one that was 575 when it went under contract, right? Let's see how large it is. It looks to be a little bit larger. It has a similar floor plan, right? I can look at the notes. I can look at the pictures. Oh, okay, so this one was listed by Scott Lemon. You guys know where he works, right? Call him up. How'd you come to the price? Did you get a lot of offers? Do you happen to know any of those realtors? Could I have a list of those realtors that showed the home that didn't win? I'd like to call them, say, hey, I got a new listing.
Excellent.
You see what I'm saying? So network a little bit. you know, it appears different. It looks a little different. It's not as much brick and stone, although it does have this really nice kind of front area, right? So take a look at the pictures. It's got some really nice touches in there, right? A lot of really nice touches. Okay, so you kind of get a feel for, ooh, that's cool. You get it, kind of really get a feel for when it hit the market. It hit the market on at the end of July. Okay, and then one day later, it went under contract. So it only took one day for this property listed at 575 to go. Make sense? So I'd go in and out of this property if I could. Scott would probably let you, I would suspect, right? And you should be taking notes on how does this property differ from the one I'm looking at, right?
And it could be that the 575 is not the actual contract price.
Oh, very much so. And I would suggest that it's probably on the low side because one day, right? So I would call that agent, Scott, and say, hey, did you get multiple offers? Right? Because that will help us understand, number one, how many people are actually looking for a property like this. And number two is, what were the offers? Were they in the 580s? Were they in the 590s? Right? Now, a listing agent is under less, like if I had this listing and it went under contract for 590, there's not like telling a buyer that the home went under contract for 590 is not as tragic as telling a buyer that the home went under contract for 560. Because if my seller was willing to take 560, then that's really important news for the marketplace, because then if I knew that, I would never offer over 560. But telling somebody that went above list price is not the end of the world. I don't think I'd tell them the exact number, but I'd say, hey, we had 10 offers and we went above list price. You see what I'm saying?
Bill, what
Yeah.
I'd like to say about that is the reason that agents will not give you what the exact price is if something falls through, then you know what their seller will accept, and they don't necessarily want that put out there.
Yes, you put it into better words than I was. That was exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you. Okay, so now we might be thinking that it could go for 575, maybe, if it is comparable. So Greta, what I would do is I'd go through every single one of these, okay, starting probably right here, this 599, and compare it, 585 and compare it, 582 and compare it, right? I would look to see, number one, descriptions, see if there's any agents I know, see if I can get into the properties, right? See what the square footage differences are. I would see if it's new construction where they might be offering some type of incentives or otherwise, right? Here's another neighborhood called Harlow that appears to have homes roughly in this price range. So I'd say, hey, Harlow, same high school, different middle and elementary. Is this a community that I should be familiar with? You see what I'm saying? Look, it feels a little different than what we looked at, what we just looked at. Do you see what I'm saying? So if I was to take a rough guess, I would say that this home is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'd probably say it's somewhere in the neighborhood between 575 and 6, probably closer to 575 if I was to take a guess. Now, the details are going to be revealed through your specific knowledge of the subject property and what happens to be on the market at that exact moment. So that's something we also have not talked about. So let's say that after all this research, I believe that it most resembles this, and I think 580 is the right price. First of all, I'd probably list at 575 anyway, because that's a bracketed price, right? And this is another end unit, right? So I'm starting to see some comparables between what I'm trying to price and what the market has already gotten an opportunity to respond to. Okay, so what I would do, let's see. Yeah, I would look at every single buyer and seller agent of these listings and see. But if I think it's worth 580, and let's say the seller's got to switch out some carpet, or have an electrician do something, or, a handyman do something, and they're not going to list for another 2 weeks, I'm pretty much going to have to do all this again. Because now there may be another active listing that I should be aware about that's on the high end or the low end. There may be a pending that would sway me, or maybe one of these deals will close that would sway me up or down. Now, my hope is that this experiment did not cause more doubt. Was this helpful?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very helpful for me.
It's a very calculated approach, because this is the theme that I should have probably mentioned at the very beginning. But ultimately, your listing is going to appear on a property search that is defined by the other party's buyer. Then the other party's buyer's agent is going to send the buyer a list of homes which match up with what the request was. And ultimately, your subject property will appear on that list. The question is when it appears on the list, what is it comparable to? And is it priced accordingly, where the buyer will say, that one's one I want to see, right? So then first you got to get them in the building, and secondly, you got to get them excited when they walk in, okay? So for example, let's go back to Michael's example at the very beginning. Let's assume this woman didn't agree to fix anything, and she's got random stuff all over the place, and it just doesn't look well taken care of. So if I look at that property and I see all these things that I got to tend to, I want to look at the price and see value. Because if they're trying to get a 10 for the price, yet the home's a 7, they're crazy, right? That's one of the questions that we will sometimes ask as a pre-qualification question for sellers, which is, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank your home? And they say, I think it's an 8. Say, great. Tell me what would have to happen for it to become a 10. Well, in order for it to become a 10, I would need to replace the AC system, and I'd have to, totally gut the deck and start over. And the property is like kind of down in a gully, right? So the driveway goes down like this. Okay, great. So some of that you could fix, some of that you can't fix. So you're probably not going to get a 10 price if your home's not a 10, right?
Right.
So when you explain it to them with that type of logic, it makes a lot more sense, right? Now, logic makes them think, but emotion is what makes them act. The other thing I see here is there ain't hardly any actives, right? So let's get rid of this. And now we're down to one active that is priced between 500 and 600, and we believe our home is more impressive, right? So let's just change that just for a second and go 5 to 650. Now we got one more property, and this is it. And let's just assume that anybody that was to review these two properties side by side would select this one, right? And it's brand new. So we know 646 is too much. Any questions on what we did today?
No, that's good stuff.
You got to look at it through the eyes of a buyer. What will the buyer see? What is going to be on that list? And what is the most impressive, right? If there's another opportunity in the marketplace that is 600, or let's say 550, and you're trying to get 575, it's probably not going to happen.
Right.
Okay. Any questions, thoughts?
Yeah, just a quick question. What would you end up pricing this house at after what we saw today?
I think, well, first of all, I've not seen the subject property. So that puts me in a bit of a disadvantage. But based on what Greta has said, I'd probably be probably a little north of 575, but not much. And in fact, I might actually just price it at 575.
Okay,
and
thank you.
If the market says it's worth, let's say 585, somebody will come out and give me 585. That's another thing which should give you guys as relatively new agents some additional confidence, which is you cannot underprice a home. You can't. Okay, so for example, if you came out and priced this at 200, how many offers you think you'd get?
A
Hundreds.
bunch.
Couple hundred probably, right?
Yeah.
That would be a good method of seeing who checks the stats every day, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we'd probably get 1,000 offers, right? And one of those agents would do their research. They'd probably all determine that somewhere in that 575 neighborhood is probably okay. And whatever the highest offer was, or the most appealing offer is, that's what it's worth at that time. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Now, if you say, hey, let's try 200, you'd probably get kicked out of the house,
Yeah.
right? But you'll still be saved on the back end, if that makes sense. Was there one more question?
Yeah, I had a question. Kind of like on the reverse end. So you know, that buyer that I had, the prospective client. So I'm showing him a house today. I'm gonna hopefully we'll see what happens if I get a buyer brokerage agreement today from them. But like, so I know they're gonna ask if they end up putting a contract in it, which obviously I know I need a BBA for it.
Not necessarily.
To put a contract in?
Well, they should either, not to get in the weeds here, but they should either fill out the buyer brokerage agreement saying they would be a client, or they could elect, although this doesn't happen very often, they could elect to sign on as a customer if they chose to.
Well,
Go ahead,
I'd rather
not to get in
them
the
get the
weeds.
agreement, but well, that's beside the point. So like, should I go through the same exercise to figure out what they should offer for a house then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, in a neighborhood where there's a bunch of sales, like let's say this was a couple years ago when there was probably a lot more sales, then you'd say, oh, look, that one over there is 525, that one over there is 540, that one over there is 535, and it'd be a lot easier. This is a little bit of a tougher bit of research. But the answer to your question, Fabiola, is absolutely.
And I have
Okay.
to say, I love that you figured that out.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I did it last night because I know I'm gonna go like at 1, I'm meeting the guy of the family, but so I'm still working through that. But yeah, I started last night.
Why don't you send me the address and I'll look at it for a second and give you some advice.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, guys, I appreciate your help. Don't forget, I'll be sending out an updated week at a glance here in just a second. But I would also remind you, we have today and tomorrow before the final week reporting is solidified. So you got 2 extra days. I'm going to make a challenge to each of you. You guys ready for the challenge?
Mhm.
Between today and tomorrow, I want you to add 5 people to the database. Who's up for the challenge? 5 people to the database. Okay. Now,
And
I will tell you, our numbers are not that good this month. There's a lot of people that have not reported. There's a lot of people that are reporting relatively low numbers. So please, let's push hard at the end, okay? These just 2 days. Let's push hard, okay?
All right.
And update if you haven't updated, please. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Sarah.
Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.